What happens when a nation, in this case the United States, becomes far too accustomed to the doctrine of fast strike, fast win? Washington has long operated under a predictable cycle: decapitate the leadership, claim victory, and retreat gracefully amidst cheers of triumph, soothing its own conscience with the narrative that it helped a foreign people escape violence by being the very hand that brought that violence to their doorstep in the first place. This expeditionary mindset has defined American foreign policy for decades. However, when the focus shifted toward Iran, the story took a sharp and unexpected turn. The issue is no longer just about why the US has yet to achieve its strategic objectives. Experts have identified a much more immediate and physical crisis that President Donald Trump must solve: the reality that the United States and likely Israel are rapidly running out of ammunition. As the old proverb goes, misfortunes never come singly. Now, the Houthi movement has officially entered the fray by successfully landing a missile on Israeli soil. This marks the first time this armed group has engaged in direct combat since the fuse was lit between the US-Israeli alliance and Iran. This move is not a localized military act. It is a signal that a multi-front war is coalescing, pushing Western defense systems into a code-red state of technological and resource exhaustion. From a strategic perspective, observers note that Houthi intervention has transformed what was once a regional skirmish into an unsolvable puzzle of global maritime security and logistics. Leveraging years of asymmetric warfare experience and a vast arsenal of Iranian-backed ballistic missiles and long-range suicide drones, the Houthis are expanding their target range far beyond the Red Sea to strike directly at the Israeli heartland. Israel's confirmation that it had to intercept a missile from Yemen while simultaneously bombarding Tehran proves that the intensity of the conflict has exceeded the capacity for bilateral control. While Washington and Tel Aviv maintain the public narrative that their only goal is the elimination of Iran's nuclear program, the reality on the ground is forcing them to spread their forces dangerously thin to counter Tehran's extended arms, reaching across the entire Arabian Peninsula. The Achilles heel of the alliance at this moment is a phenomenon known as the ammunition abyss. Statistical data reveals a horrifying reality. In just the first 16 days of the conflict, the US-Israeli alliance has expended approximately $26 billion on munitions alone, with an average daily consumption rate of 33 ballistic missiles and 94 unmanned aerial vehicles (UAVs) launched from the Iranian side. Israel's defensive shield is being eroded at a breathtaking pace. Reports indicate that Israel's stockpile of Arrow interceptor missiles could be completely depleted by the end of March 2026, while the American-supplied THAAD Terminal High-Altitude Area Defense system possesses only enough battery reloads for less than a month of sustained combat. The danger lies in the staggering cost-exchange ratio. While the adversary utilizes low-cost lawnmower drones to harass and saturate defenses, the alliance is forced to expend interceptors that carry astronomical production costs and incredibly complex manufacturing timelines. A single Arrow 3 or Tomahawk cruise missile can take between 2 to 3 years to manufacture from scratch, creating a power vacuum that even the most advanced technology cannot fill in real time. Inside the Pentagon, emergency meetings have been convened as the inventory of Tomahawk missiles in the Middle East has touched alarmingly low levels. Some US officials admit that if the situation does not stabilize, Washington may be forced to cannibalize stockpiles from the Indo-Pacific theater to put out the fire in the Middle East, a high-risk gamble that could critically weaken American deterrence against other major adversaries in Asia. The current scenario suggests that Iran and its proxies, like the Houthis, are successfully executing a war of economic and material attrition. They do not need to win a single great battle, they only need to maintain enough pressure to push the Western supply chain into total exhaustion. President Donald Trump has recently asserted to the world that negotiations with Iran to end the ongoing hostilities are progressing very well, following the delivery of a 15-point action list via third-party intermediaries. However, the United States has remained uncharacteristically tight-lipped regarding the specific contents of this proposal, nor has it disclosed exactly which Iranian faction it is actually negotiating with. Meanwhile, official voices from Tehran flatly deny that these discussions are even taking place. Rejecting the plan out of hand, Iranian officials have characterized the conditions as outrageous, maximalist, and irrational. One internal source stated that after senior leadership reviewed the proposal, they concluded it serves exclusively the interests of the US and Israel, though they carefully emphasized that the door to diplomacy has not been permanently slammed shut. Political analysts point out that despite American claims of success, this conflict cannot be resolved through purely military means, and after a full month of fighting, Iran believes it holds the strategic advantage. They argue that the total erosion of trust makes it nearly impossible for the US to achieve a diplomatic breakthrough, especially as a more confident Iran will view any offer of a ceasefire as an invitation to surrender. The White House has yet to verify the 15-point plan, and the leaked details available thus far come from a combination of Iranian officials and regional media reports. Intermediaries suggest the proposal includes drastic restrictions on Iran's nuclear program, increased anytime, anywhere inspections by the UN nuclear watchdog, the physical dismantling of core infrastructure, and the immediate handover of all existing enriched uranium stockpiles. The proposal also demands a permanent, legally binding commitment from Tehran to never develop nuclear weapons. The dismantling of infrastructure would require Iran to decommission its primary nuclear sites at Natanz, Isfahan, and Fordow. All three locations were targeted by alliance airstrikes last summer, but US intelligence assessments concluded those strikes only delayed operations by a few months. Under the new plan, Iran would no longer be permitted to enrich any uranium domestically, and the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, would be granted unprecedented oversight of any remaining civilian facilities. Reports also briefly mention that in exchange, the US might offer support for a clean, civilian nuclear energy sector and a phased lifting of economic sanctions. Furthermore, the plan aims to end Iranian support for regional proxies, strictly limit the ballistic missile program, and move toward a 30-day cooling-off ceasefire coupled with the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. Such a deal would be far wider in scope than the quiet discussions held earlier this year, which were narrowly focused on nuclear enrichment levels. One regional expert noted that the demands in the current proposal align with what the US has repeatedly asked for over the past year. The critical difference this time is that it is occurring in a context where there is zero mutual trust and a geopolitical standoff where Iran currently holds better cards than the US. This war appears to have significantly weakened the American negotiating position, as Iran has demonstrated a vastly higher threshold for pain compared to the West. Fundamentally, the US is offering a deal that Iran might have accepted as a baseline for talks before the war broke out. But now, as Tehran feels they are winning the war of attrition, they are likely to demand much more and are far less willing to make such massive concessions. Trump, in essence, is finding himself with no choice but a diplomatic solution. There is no viable military exit strategy left on his desk. His current offer, unfortunately, is viewed by Tehran as a demand for total capitulation. The latest debate over the diplomatic path is actually a new chapter in a performative, almost staged narrative about whether Washington is truly offering a serious exit ramp for Iran or merely repackaging the same hardline demands that Tehran has already rejected. The landmark 2015 agreement JCPOA was designed to ensure Iran's nuclear program remained strictly peaceful in exchange for the lifting of nuclear-related sanctions. While some restrictions remained, such as the arms and ballistic missile embargoes, the deal was seen by supporters as a way to prevent a nuclear arms race. Opponents, however, argued it merely delayed the inevitable bomb while providing Tehran with the frozen assets needed to fund regional militancy. Other analysts observe that President Trump's 15-point plan is fundamentally different from the 2015 deal, which was a narrowly designed arms control agreement swapping temporary limits for permanent sanctions relief. The new plan is vastly more expansive and binding on the Iranian leadership. Currently, Iran is openly defying Trump's plan because they believe they are winning, and that narrative of victory is being amplified by various factions even in the West. Under these conditions, Tehran seeks to create a greater level of strategic deterrence to break the cycle of war negotiation, ceasefire war. However, as this regime often does, they may be prone to overplaying their hand. While the US might technically possess greater coercive power after a month of conflict, that is only one piece of the puzzle. Coercive power does not automatically translate into effective diplomatic leverage, especially when Iran has shown that its use of asymmetric warfare tactics has left global markets in a state of constant anxiety. This approach may still be a typical Trump-style negotiating tactic, serving as a maximum pressure starting point from which US negotiators can eventually offer face-saving concessions.